thanks, Thomas. Okay, so I happened to select a very, very long and complicated title for my presentation here, but we're going through the presentation of a central platform for business-wide, think about all the terms, standardized conversion of documents to PDF and PDFA. So it's basically about introducing a new thought on how we in enterprises and larger organizations take the approach on generating, converting, or whatever, editing, manipulating in any form our documents, probably mostly with the target of creating or ending up with a PDF document. I'm going to walk a little bit about today's landscape as we find it in larger organizations, and I'm going to propose this complicated thing here as a solution and a new approach to it. So what is the current situation in larger organizations, and what are the sources of PDF files, or in other words, what are the components and tools used to do anything around PDF in larger organizations? I think that's an approach of several levels of tools that are on several different levels of being under control, or on certain different levels of being authorized to use, or something like that. And it all probably starts with when you would ask an IT guy in a larger organization, what PDF tools are you using? Can you give me a list? It's probably a big challenge. IT probably doesn't know what is all used across the enterprise, which is for myself a very surprising fact to understand that the IT responsible probably doesn't know. It's probably also a name it, we got it approach. So any tool out there in the market, any component that does PDF, whatever with PDF, is probably used in a larger enterprise. There is this level of known and designed to use of different PDF solutions and tools. For example, we heard from Innovo this presentation about electronic mail rooms, and there might be a policy that there is this specific PDF component in the electronic mail room that creates any kind of scan or email to PDFA level 2U or something like that, completely authorized, a departmental solution where a small group of experts selected that and said, this is how we are going to do that. Probably not talking to the guys who have other challenges. I don't know, just an example given. There's email conversion. Might be another group in the document management department saying, we want to offload emails from our mail server. We want to make them long-term accessible. So let's convert them to PDFA. Probably ending up with another tool of creating PDFs. Probably they end up to say, oh, we use PDFA 3, what did I write? B, for example, because of. There's big applications, companies running SAP. Of course, SAP comes with something that does PDF in the end, or any other application out there. And my bet is there's at least 10 more other systems that are on that level of okay in a company that somebody used, but that are already disconnected from each other, not known about, there's no synergy between them, and there's also no logic between how we approach PDF and a document strategy or something like that. Then there's this next level of PDF tools and components used in the company. That is these wherever that came from kind of tools. It's Microsoft Office is rolled out into the company. So every desktop by accident has a tool to create PDF in a safe as mode. And there is a variety of other tools that are on purpose still rolled out and by accident also having a PDF thingy attached to it. And then there's this third level of thing there. It gets really out there in the wild, is like unknown. Here's a PDF. Who did it? Wow, with what? Probably somebody brought his own device in there and did some Foxit mobile application because somebody told him that's a great app, you need to use that. And all of a sudden these PDFs end up in an enterprise content. And when we go back to Wim's presentation, these PDFs end up to be our assets, the storage place of our net asset, of our value, of our information about the, what did he say, not the heartbeat of the company, the DNA of the company, that's what he said. So when you really think about that, and think about how normally IT is approaching things in a relatively straightforward, strict, sometimes for us user pain in the behind kind of approach because we want to get something done. They say, no, 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 we need to think about this and that and this and that before we roll out just another piece of software. And we're in a situation that with PDF, it's like pure anarchy out there in enterprises. Funny, it took me a while to recognize, and I have a solution or a proposal to a solution to do it differently. Yeah, once more, it's another view on the same data, let's say. PDFs are, in many ways, it's work with PDFs. They are created probably from output management system based on transactional data and templates. PDFs are created from SAP, probably again with templates and structured data. But then there's a variety of others, PDF coming in, PDF are converted from PDF to PDFA for purposes, Word to PDF, wherever, it is everywhere in here. And also the connection points, how should I say that? Connection points that say where PDF is coming from, where PDF is used, and I'm mostly talking about the creation side of PDF, is also everywhere. It's client-based applications, server-based applications. You see them all here. Yeah? It's a mail client can create a PDF, a mail server probably can create a PDF, and we do it on mobile systems. And another view on that data is it's done in backend systems in various forms. It's done in cloud systems. It's done on desktops in various forms. So PDF is anywhere in there, and PDF is different on every use case, in every use case, giving us a little challenge. One more view on the current situation of PDF in enterprises. I rarely saw a situation where PDF approach is something like a central thing, like an IT-driven, probably central concept at least, or at least somebody picked that document conversion out and said, how are we going to do this in our company? I rarely saw that. It's not viewed as an IT infrastructure. It's just an extension to something with the challenges I'm going to list on the next page. It is taking a step, it's going a step further than just PDF. Even the general approach to generating document is distributed. It's almost unmanaged. Like every departmental solution is good enough. We don't take a centralized approach and end up with, again, I'm going to save the challenges for the next page. Yeah, the approach is more or less like I outlined it. Who has a need will find a solution, puts that to life, and use it that way in his limited and specific content without even taking care of what the others do around solving the same problem of document conversion, document generation, PDF creation. PDF, on the other hand, is mature. We had many presentations today where we see that it is everywhere. It is in any process. Any process has it. And even if it's pure database driven, at some point the journals are printed to PDF to go in the archive or something like that. So it's everywhere. And it's also critical for the business. No wonder we Germans are fond of PDFA. We understand PDF is critical for the business. We need to make sure that we archive it properly and so on and so forth. Still wondering why we don't care about the process and how we generate our PDFs. So I think it's time to take a new approach. That's probably the summary of the last 3.5 slides here. It's time to review the approach to PDF and take an approach of how we organize our PDF conversion processes, our PDF generation processes, and take it to the level of where we arrived already with the critical mass of the PDF. You know, we started with PDF and we evolved over those 25 years. Now it's everywhere, and we still use the same mechanism that we used in the good old days when we had 25 years ago started to do PDF. Giving us challenges. So the question is, why bother? Yeah, why should it kind of seems to work out there. So these journals coming out of SAP kind of look like archivable, put it in there. And also all these other PDF is universally usable, so it kind of looks like it works. But honestly, if you're in an enterprise and you're responsible for document management, you're probably responsible to protect the integrity the fidelity of the company's core assets. Think about a bank. What is the core asset? Yeah, it's the money. It's the document. It's the documentation. It's the credit files. Those things are sitting in PDF. So the quality of PDF, the same quality of PDF across all the systems we use that are connected to a core banking process should matter from my perspective. And I think when it doesn't matter, we don't need to archive it. I'm thinking when you have the feeling that this document needs to be archived, then you should also have the feeling of saying, is it a good PDF? Is it a good PDF in many, many different aspects, from technical point of view, from accessible point of view, from many other, and then also for all the systems concerned with that PDF, for all the sources, I call that in here. Another why bother kind of thing is, guess what happens when this new CIO in town comes in and understands, you listen to a presentation similar like that, and he's saying like, well, or one of the old PDFA presentation maybe. New CIO comes in and says, I like it. Let's do PDFA from tomorrow on as the only format that we use. IT, go execute. It's impossible. Nobody can do that because, again, we're having a million different tools out there. How can we say that we next day do PDFA to you as we recommended for all the documents and all the subsystems? It's an impossible task. Nobody can do that. And at least then when we get to the third level down here, somebody brings it in and breaks the rules, does something. So we need to apply workarounds for that. Like when a document comes in from the wild outside there, we have to validate it, check it, convert it, have to have an extra instance. Why don't we take care of the quality in the first place? So why don't we make sure that we take the approach, the IT infrastructure approach to our PDF and document conversion solutions so that we easily can implement or enforce document policies. Think about a new requirement comes in and you need to subsequently stamp with a number the documents of two different departments. These guys use that PDF solution, these guys use that PDF solution. When you would have it in a central infrastructure component, you could do it, no matter whether document 2 from here, 1 from there, 3 from there, you can still have a subsequent numbering, but you would have to take it out of the wild, out of the bazillion tools out there, take it into your own hands and kind of, as the presentation title says, centralize the approach and make it an IT infrastructure. Yeah, other aspects that we are completely missing using all this little PDF printer attached to that enterprise resource management system or something like that is the documentation of the document processing. And I'm talking not only about, I'm talking in two aspects. First aspect is you have to, in order to secure the evidence of a document so that you can take it to court and later on said, this is what we agreed upon. In order to secure the evidence of the document, you have to, in Germany and in other countries, I'm sure the same way, you have to document the process of how did you receive the document, through what kind of states it ran, how was it converted, how was it merged, split, converted to PDFA, what version, what time, user access to it or not, and all this kind of stuff. So you have to write that down. So then an auditor can go in and say, yeah, they do it all right. It's the first step of that. How would you want to do that with all these distributed assets, all these distributed tools? Think about you document your process very well, but then there is this guy who actually edits it and does something in the wild. So at least it's difficult. It's also a much longer documentation if you have so many tools involved in a conversion process of a single PDF document. Second level, how about documenting which version of a conversion tool was used for that 13 years ago? Which workflow version and workflow generally was used 15 years ago to generate page 3 of this document? It's almost impossible. You can't do that with today's approach to creating and manipulating and editing PDF. The other level of what I'm talking about is really not only document your process and understand your process, but also document every single page in every single document on what happened in order to increase the evidence value of a specific document so that the judge later on will judge it as evidence other than saying, I don't know where it came from. Yeah. Some customer in a lawsuit might present a document and says, this is what we agreed on. And you're saying, no, 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 that's a manipulated document. This is what we agreed on. Look at my document is different. Who's right? You would probably want to have complete documentation of your processes as well as a complete audit trail on what happened to the document so that you can provide evidence and say, my document is the correct one. Yeah, who touched the document and how? Impossible with today's approach to creating and manipulating PDF. Logging, again, is kind of the same thing, like every single step that happens should be documented, not only who, when, and how, but also which version, which tools involved, and so on and so forth. I think that's a list that still barely scratches the surface of why bother with the quality and the fidelity of PDF. Okay, let's take it a step further and leave the PDF format and the document conversion for a second and think about what else is around there. What else is around there? We heard that in several different presentations. We have virtualized data centers, we have cloud, private, public, elastic, whatever kind of cloud. We have a whole new level of, what was that? Cloud-based application or full cloud, but whatever. Whole new IT landscape. When we started doing PDFs, we had a virtual PostScript to PDF printer attached on a Windows system and attached to any kind of software, and it ended up being a PDF, and that's still there. And we took a whole lot of other approaches to that, and that's still there. None of them matches the current, modern, latest and greatest IT architecture. So I think it's also time to reconsider the approach to document conversion from a perspective of that other systems just have outgrown it, just have moved forward and evolved, while we still do it in the same good old fashion, which we even don't know because of all these bazillion different tools that a larger enterprise uses, on purpose or by accident. Yeah, but of course it takes a little to think about. It takes a little to come clear when we take this step here, which is going from one little tool per use case, current situation, to a managed central IT infrastructure for our PDF or, generally speaking, document conversion needs. It takes some. It's a way. And just to start with a little bit of a technical requirements there, all of a sudden, you know, with all these little PDF tools, as difficult as it is, as unmanageable as it is, but when one department's little tiny PDF printer has a hiccup, the other departments are not affected. So that's the good news about the old approach. Taking it a step further and putting this to the next level, lifting it up to being an IT infrastructure component sitting in a modern data center IT organization as we have it in enterprises as a service, shared service across all different systems, that of course puts more a necessity, that puts more emphasis on being able to dynamically scale a solution. And you can't predict user behavior. All of a sudden they hit you with 150,000 files in the next 3 minutes, and when you take it to a central IT approach, you have to just cope with it based on mechanisms like load balancing or dynamically allocating resources to your IT infrastructure component that takes care of your PDF creation. Good news is, that's all not rocket science. That's all available. Just somebody has to step up and bring it together with PDF. That's the point. It's just there, but so far nobody brought it together in that, let's say, at least deep implementation that it is enterprise ready. People, I mentioned, unforeseeable behavior just happens when you share it across all the departments. They're not going to call you up and say, I'm going to send some heavy load at you. They just do it and expect that it gets done. Based on their service level agreement that they have, based on their expectations that they have, based on the priority that it has, based on whether there is a user sitting in front of a terminal having an interactive thing going on using a central PDF, or whether that's a system that just needs to convert a backlog of the daily documents that come in that have to go in an archive, and nobody's waiting on that, right? So it's different. Dynamic scalability, I guess, is one part. It also has to be a PDF solution. It's not even mentioned here, but it has to be a PDF solution that is really scalable in the first place, because we now summarize a relatively medium level load from many systems. We summarize that in one central IT infrastructure component. All of a sudden, the sum of medium turns out to be a very high load all of a sudden. So definitely some thought has to put in there in order to tap into the advantages of a centralized IT infrastructure approach for PDF. Yeah, and then service levels I mentioned. You might end up having agreements based on your SLAs with your IT departments on what the maximum reaction time is, the maximum conversion time is, the maximum wait time is that you have, what the maximum expected downtime per year is if you want to have anything like that. And I guess business part of an enterprise might say 0. So you have to really say that how am I going to cope with providing a very high service level, generally speaking, or very high availability of that infrastructure. But again, things like automatic failovers, reducing any single point of failure in an IT infrastructure component, taking it from the good old fat piece of software approach into microservices as we heard it today, is also there. Again, just somebody has to step up and bring it together with PDF. Okay, technical requirements. There's also, of course, then the summary of all potential functional requirements. Meaning, Department A does PDFA for a good reason. Department B does PDFX because they print the high gloss catalog. Department C does something like, probably they don't, PDFVT or something else. It's not that far used, but they do something like, because they are in output management, or. And then some of them need to do signatures on PDF, and some of them need to just merge, split, crop, whatever, PDF. So the summary of all potential requirements towards a PDF tool would be the minimum list of requirements that will be to be fulfilled with a central IT infrastructure approach to PDF. So when you want to have this quote-unquote server that does everything what your PDFs have to do, it has to be able of doing everything, which is not what I pointed at. Functional requirements I explained. Okay, let's take it to the next step. It not only has to provide all these different functions, probably a little different for every department. It will end up to have the requirement of having little technical workflows. So a document comes in, format A, has to be converted in intermediate format B, then a database lookup has to be done, data has to be aggregated, has to be filled into that field of the document. Then we end up with a PDF that has to be, I don't know, there's an image on page 13, has to be OCR'd, and then the next step will be save as PDFA, blah, 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 blah. Next department does it different. Other workflow, technical workflow I'm talking about. So if you take everything on a central IT, then I guess you would need to have several different workflows in your tool, in your infrastructure, in your quote-unquote server, who in parallel can be executed in parallel, who can be available at any time. But the good news is, again, when you do it that way, then the IT is in charge. So then the business, again, is in the position to say, this is our requirements, like they did and bought their own little piece, but they can now put this requirement forward to the IT department. IT department says, yeah, we do have this central infrastructure, we do have this platform, and using that platform, we're going to roll out a new workflow, lining up this and this and this and this technical components and getting from A to Z just as the business requirement from the department is. And the IT department in that situation will be in control of change management, will be in control of versioning, and will be in control of rolling it out, allocating priorities, allocating resources to it, and just really takes it back in their own hands. That's what I'm saying, and takes it out from being out there in the wild like it is today. Yeah, another aspect, obviously, like a functional requirement to an infrastructure component like that is when you have to cope with all the concurrent requirements from all the concurrent departments out there. Obviously, you have to have a very unique multi-layer prioritization process around that. Again, there's high critical things. There's critical things in the sense of user experience, somebody sitting in front of a terminal and waiting for a document to be ready, or getting any other feedback. And other things is like, okay, we have a service level of these 100,000 documents that we can start in the morning at 8 and it has to go out by 11. We have a 3 hours window, no problem, we can give it a lower priority. Still, we have to meet our SLA with that. So that has to be kind of, so when I would have to write down a shopping list of how do I get a central IT infrastructure for all my PDF needs, I would probably write that here on my requirements list. Other things we all know is that when you use central approach, all the products as we have it, for example, PDF compressor, many users here of PDF compressor, when a document is shot at it and it's very long or very large, it takes a long time, basically clogging up the queues, waiting for a long time on a specific document in order to free up a specific resource that the next document is already desperately waiting for. And we have the situation with PDF compressor that when 10, I don't know, you license it for 10 cores, so 10 parallel processes could start. And when the 10th very long, large document would be uploaded, then it would get really, really boring for other people waiting for their conversion jobs to be done. That's impossible in approach when you take it to an IT infrastructure. Of course, you have to cope with interleaving, with understanding the requirements between this one-page documents where somebody's sitting in front of the terminal and this 10,000-page document that also needs to get done at some point, but where the tolerance for waiting on it is probably a little higher. Yeah, and when we take it enterprise and take it central, when we talk about IT, we're talking about budget. It's easy as that. It's cost center. Sometimes you're different, but in the end, it's a cost center. And the departments have to carry the weight. So they get charged for IT services. They want to buy a computer. And I know at MediaMarkt, the computer is 400. I get it from IT, it's 4,000. Of course, because they have to refinance themselves through that. Obviously, it's a cost center. It has to be carried with complete service from the different departments. Now, when we take our PDF from the department owns that little thingy there that IT has no idea and no control about for PDF, and we take it to the level of IT takes it under control and is fully in charge of it, IT has to have the means and tools to charge the departments. So when we take it to a central IT approach with regards to PDF, again, one criteria on my little checklist would be we have to collect the accounting data in order to be able to say which department or what service level, which cost center needs to be charged how much for the number of conversions done or whatever the agreements is that they have. Probably a little more expensive on higher priority per page, probably a little less expensive on lower priority per page, but we have to have the accounting data in there, plus the license management and the license distribution and the technical requirements behind that. Okay, it's new aspects. I think it's worth going through them, and I think it's worth coming up with a solution, which we took the decision to do in order to tap into the advantages of bringing PDF into the new era of IT landscape. So the solution I propose, and let's make it really easy, it is of course a product of ours. I hope I generically enough for my session share introduced the concept of it to not be accused of a product pitch in here, which is forbidden. But so I'm not naming it enterprise. I'm not naming it rendition server. Oh, I do name it a rendition server. I just want to coin a term that is enterprise rendition. And the enterprise rendition term is now exactly what I was talking about all the time when I said, how is it today and how it should be in the future? I think enterprise rendition would mean having a central IT infrastructure, like we have our ERP system, like we have our archive system, like we have our output management system. We do have our PDF system in an enterprise that serves all the other IT subsystems with PDF-related functionality. That's what I call enterprise rendition, when it has also another level and set of qualities or features or functions that I would deem required for an enterprise content. A rendition server in that sense, from my perspective, when you want to have that as a name for that IT infrastructure component, is best case an on-premise web service. I don't want to really say that it can't be in the cloud. Innovo, in 2 or 3 presentations ago, introduced rendition server as being part of their cloud service offering. Great concept, but as we also heard today, many enterprises would require that their documents stay in-house in private cloud. So we more or less positioned it as to being an on-premise web service. I'm going to explain the terms on the next slide. So a rendition server is an on-premise web service for the fast and high-quality PDF conversion. That includes PDF creation, PDF conversion, PDF editing, everything around PDF that we might think of. For massive amount of data, talking enterprise content, we're talking about taking all the PDF documents. We heard trillions of documents here and bazillions of documents there, but it is a lot in enterprises that we have. We have 60,000 documents in a couple of minutes, for example. Happens all the time. So we have to be able to cope with that. So massive amount of data is definitely an aspect from various sources. Sources are databases together with templates. Sources are the SAP system, as I mentioned. It sources is the input management system, the output management system that shoot some base stuff at a rendition server and expect to get a high fidelity proper PDF back from it when we are in an enterprise content. So again, a rendition server is an on-premise web service for the fast and high quality PDF conversion of massive amount of data from various sources in an enterprise context. That's my definition. I have a feeling I tend to have long titles and long definitions for my stuff, but
it's a mission statement.
So explain it. On-premise web service I explained already. Your documents, your data, the approach to it more or less is we are not going to go public cloud. In many industries, it's even strictly forbidden. You can't take it out of Germany. At least you can't take it out of Europe. You can't bring it to Dropbox in America or something like that. Many industries have that regulations. Anyway, either way, everybody knows that when I can have a web service in my data center, I can also open it up to the public like Innovo does, but we more or less focus it on that. Fast. What is fast? Fast means that inside expectations. We all know that running an OCR on a relatively fully printed page takes a while. What does it take? Maybe 2 seconds, 3? Some kind of nasty nested tables on it, and it takes 15 seconds. So there's things we can't do anything around. But there's a lot of things we can do something around. We can have an infrastructure that actually can break down work packages of conversion. Why don't we clock up one conversion line, one server, one CPU core, whatever it is, with a document that we know takes for very long? Only 10 minutes? And then I make it. Yeah, of course I make it. There can be a lot of intelligence around that to actually breaking tasks into packages that they can be parallelized, that they can be executed parallel on more resources than we have in order to meet the expectations of the users, and that is what defines fast. So what is the technical requirement for a platform? That it has to scale seamlessly over many servers, server resources in that sense, no matter whether it's virtual couple CPU cores to a given server or a second server or a third server or a 15th server have to be able to be attached to the conversion process without any downtimes or installations, just really dynamically built up and built down as the resources are needed, let's say. High quality conversion is the next aspect on our long sentence here. We do have, as I said, many input formats. Output formats mostly are PDF. or PDFA, and we want to ensure that's one of the key elements of going to a central IT infrastructure, that every process that is attached to that ends up with having the same level and quality and fidelity in the PDF documents as we have them. And on our rendition server, if I may talk about the product, we have very tested and proven software conversion PDF-based technology built in there. I think from a high quality or fidelity standpoint, we don't have to be shy of anything. And we can, of course, also include validators or other aspects of quality control into our, what I call, little workflows of document conversion. Massive amount of data, again, request prioritization, observe SLAs, we talked about that aspect for sure. Various sources, it's a web service platform, so I said we are providing enterprise rendition as a web service in a company. Web service is just really the technical interface. The technical interface that allows other application to access that service. And the web service platform allows especially that, independent from the programming language, independent from the operating system. It is a relatively open interface that almost any other application can access. And we had detailed explanation of what a web service is already in earlier presentations. And enterprise context, again, from our understanding, it's not only about a massive amount of data, it's not only about fidelity of our assets here, it's also about operation and maintenance. So this kind of tool will end up in a modern data center, and that modern data center is probably managed by, I don't know, Microsoft Cloud Management software or something else, but not by just another funny GUI from just another vendor, right? So also on that level, operations and maintenance, I think that when we take PDF to that central IT infrastructure approach, we have to make sure that we complete and seamlessly tie into existing data management software and reporting tools for our rendition server here as well. And of course, again, it means scalability, I'd call it. This is, we can take it generically. This is an approach to it. Some of that was already heard in the web service presentation this morning. I'm going to repeat that. The web service can be universally called, no matter whether it's from automated or backend system with no user sitting in front of that, or more or less user used or user in front of the terminal kind of system, and the terminal can be mobile or anything else. It can universally call the web service. What we heard today, some of these might transport the document that needs to be converted through the web service into the central infrastructure component. Some of these, especially those sitting on the file server and right next to where the files are already stored, might just really transport references when calling in here, say convert the document sitting somewhere here, and that server can load it. I think it's explained already this morning. The infrastructure itself can't allow for any single point of failure. So no matter whether it's a managing component that provides the web service into the company or into the infrastructure, or whether it's the number crunchers, the computers really actually executing the OCR or something else, or they're doing the conversion, they have to be able to be running in an automatic failover, hot failover, standby, or any other setup that is used for load balancing or any other purpose, any other parallel approach to it. Then we provide, in this case here, another web service. That other web service is called the operations and maintenance web service, independent from the web service that does the this and this is the same, does the conversion. This is the operations and maintenance web service. We also provide that what I called a funny other vendor user interface to manage the platform, but we do that completely through the publicly documented web service that in the same fashion ties into data center management software for setup, configuration, and especially monitoring and reporting. Of course, we need a database, but this whole infrastructure does never store a document. That's an important point. This is not just another level of where documents end up and nobody knows where, but this is really a conversion service. So document conversion requests come in, results go out. Documents are not stored in here. There's no file server attached to that or something like that. The database really holds In the immediate first millisecond when a web service request comes in, it protocols it. It protocols all the conversions, it holds the workflows, it holds the versioning of the workflows, the versioning of the conversion modules, and everything that is in here. It provides all the data we need for a later query to do an audit trail and all this kind of stuff, but no documents. Yeah, then the number crunchers, and that could be an architecture, I guess, that would fit and does fit into the modern landscape of IT and data centers. Yeah, web service technology was explained pretty well this morning already, so I'm not sure I need to dive into that real deeply, only probably a summary. When you have a web service interface, it's the most ubiquitous, thin ice here, is that the right word in English? I don't know. Ubiquitous means like universally usable? Yes? Okay, good. So ubiquitous? Way of approaching an IT infrastructure from various different other IT systems. So operating systems, programming languages, frameworks, whatever. It doesn't really matter. All of these have their ways and means, and if it is PowerShell on a Windows computer can access a web service and that way make use of the rendition server and even a file extension, right click, save as PDF, which we implemented for like demonstration purposes, can 3 minutes. You showed me a timeout. Can be used to get the same fidelity PDF documents, as easy as that, because it can be connected through the web server to the rendition server when IT has the conversion under control. Value proposition, real quick. Enterprise-grade PDF conversion platform, no matter where it comes from, it reduces our risk and complexity in the IT landscape. Of course, we have the need then to manage another IT infrastructure component, but that's not rocket science. That's known how to do it. It reduces the risk and the complexity. One infrastructure, one defined way of doing things, policy-based conversion, enforce the corporate identity is things we can do now. In the long run, it will definitely, due to our studies and investigations, save money and lower the total cost of ownership across all the PDF tools that we have out there, including their maintenance, including their operation. We can have a pay for what you use, grow over time kind of approach to it so that you don't overpay. And it allows the IT department finally being agile and flexible when it comes to document conversion processes, because it's a relatively easy, once the rendition server is running, process to configure a new workflow, a new technical requirement, to model that on the platform of a rendition server and then deploy it on day one in the full scalable, fully documented, fully traced and tracked way of the rendition server as it provides it. So I'm saying, get in the driver's seat, IT, and take back control over PDF. It's my summary. Thank you very much.